Hummingbirds are a highly unusual order of birds, and today we will be looking into their various adaptations before focusing in on the genus Colibri, more commonly known as the violet ears. As usual, a document with the sources for the images used, along with research papers I found useful, will be included in the description of this video. Hummingbirds are in the order Apodiformes. This order is in a clade of birds known as the Strysores, or more colloquially as the nightbirds. While this common name may seem odd since hummingbirds are famously diurnal, they are the exception, not the rule, as the other birds in this clade are nocturnal or crepuscular. This clade is also known for the small and weak feet possessed by many of the birds within it. This means some species cannot perch on branches like other birds, and so tend to rest on the ground, on tree stumps instead of branches, or spend a lot of their time flying. The most basal order is the nightjars and Caprimulgiformes. These nocturnal birds are well camouflaged, and often found resting on the forest floor. Next is the Patoos and Nyctobeoformes. This is actually an order I have looked into before, so have a look at that video if you are interested. However, they are large birds that typically rest on stumps instead of branches. The oilbird is the sole living member of Steatornithiformes. Like most of the other birds in this clade, they are nocturnal and are one of the very few birds to have echolocation. The frogmouths and Podargiformes is another order of large nocturnal birds. They are named due to their extremely wide mouths. Like Patoos, they perch on stumps and vertical branches and rely on their camouflage to avoid detection during the day. Then we come to the owlet nightjars and Igothaliformes. This group has often been grouped in with other orders, like the frogmouths or nightjars, despite studies since the 1960s demonstrating that they had noticeably different skull morphology. It was not until 2007 when the group was formally recognized as their own order, and, perhaps surprisingly, as the closest living relatives of the final order. This final order is the Apodiformes with the swifts and hummingbirds. While hummingbirds have sometimes been suggested to belong in their own order, it is commonly accepted that they are part of Apodiformes. This name literally means footless, due to the highly reduced feet seen in both hummingbirds and swifts. There are three living families of Apodiformes. The first is the true swifts and Apodidae. These are highly aerial birds, specialized for catching insects while flying. They have long wings for their size, and typically their wings have pointed tips. These adaptations help with their aerial mobility. Swifts are optimized for flying, and they also tend to fly high. They can fly at around 3,000 meters or 10,000 feet above sea level, about the same as a small airplane. They can even sleep while flying by putting half of their brain to sleep at once, allowing the other half to control their flight. The tree swifts and Hemiprocnidae only have 4 living species, but are distinct from the true swifts. They are found in India and Southeast Asia, including New Guinea and the Solomon Islands. They have many notable differences to the true swifts in their skeletons, including in their skull, feet, and toes. The last family is Trochilidae, which includes the roughly 366 species of hummingbird. This is actually the second largest family of birds, only behind the tyrant flycatchers. Rather than just focusing in on the violet ears today, I do want to take the time to look at the various adaptations they have. These do apply to the violet ears, but also to all of the other hummingbirds, and they are extremely unique birds. The first thing you will notice when talking about hummingbirds is their names. Hummingbirds seem to bring out the creativity in the scientists that get to name them, so they have some of the most interesting names of all animals, in my opinion. For just a quick list, hummingbirds include the saberwings, lancebills, sungems, mountain gems, fairies, sylphs, sun angels, comets, mangoes, topazes, emeralds, and brilliants. Very few of them actually have the word hummingbird in their name, and by the end of that list, it sounded like I was just making up names of colourful things, and that list certainly wasn't all of them. By this point, you will have seen a few photos of hummingbirds, so it might be surprising when I tell you that their feathers are not colourful. Now, this might be confusing, as hummingbirds themselves are very colourful, so let me explain. Hummingbirds are one of the few groups of birds with little pigmentation in most of their feathers. The colour that your eyes see is not because of the pigmentation, but is instead due to the actual structure of the feathers. The top layer of their feathers has specialized cells that act like prisms. These take in the sunlight and then reflect it back out in various wavelengths, resulting in the brilliant colors that we can see. This is also why hummingbirds can look like different colors from different angles, as the color depends on the angle the sunlight is being reflected. Finally, this is also why hummingbirds often look almost black in low light conditions. If there is not enough light for the prism-like cells to work properly, then the bird will absorb light with very little being reflected. The result of this is the bird will look like a shade of black or grey. Hummingbirds are extremely important pollinators for many plants in the Americas. They are nectarivores, feeding on the nectar produced by flowers. This has led to extreme examples of coevolution between some species of hummingbirds and certain plants. Coevolution is when two different species reciprocally affect each other's evolution. For example, the sicklebills are two species of hummingbird that have extremely long curved bills. The reason for this unusual bill shape is that they are the perfect size and shape to feed on nectar from flowers in the genera Centropogon and Heliconia. This is coevolution, as the hummingbirds clearly evolved alongside the flowers to become their perfect pollinators. The plants benefit as it gives them a pollinator that specializes in them. The hummingbirds also benefit as it gives them a guaranteed food source, as other pollinators are unable to reach the nectar in those plants. Moving on to their flight, hummingbirds are unique amongst flying vertebrates. They are the only vertebrates able to hover and can even fly backwards or upside down. There are several adaptations that allow them to do these remarkable feats. Firstly, they can beat their wings very quickly. The fastest recorded while hovering was 99.1 wing beats per second. However, males have been recorded beating their wings at over 100 beats per second during certain courtship displays. These rapid wing beats also cause the humming noise that gives the hummingbirds their common name. However, fast wing beats by itself is not enough to hover or fly backwards. They beat their wings in a figure-8 motion to help distribute their body weight through all stages of each wing beat to help them keep aloft while hovering. This creates a series of downdrafts under each wing, helping them stay in the air. Their skeleton is also specialized for this behavior. Their shoulder joint is a ball and socket joint, the same as other birds and in fact the same as a human shoulder, but theirs is structurally different and allows them much greater freedom of movement than other birds. This allows them to rotate their wings by 180 degrees. Hummingbirds use this rotation to fly. Other birds flap their wings up and down, but hummingbirds instead rotate their wings to generate the lift necessary to fly. This type of flight is important for hummingbirds as it lets them hover while feeding from flowers. This means that they can feed from flowers inaccessible to other birds that need to perch or hang onto the plant in some way. It does also have a downside, however. Hummingbirds have the fastest metabolism of any animal, and their flight also costs a lot of energy. They can do this as their diet is nectar, one of the most energy-rich sources of food. But even so, they still need to eat 1.5 times to 3 times their body weight every single day. If food is scarce, then hummingbirds can enter a state of torpor. This is an emergency-saving mechanism that is similar to hibernation. During torpor, the hummingbird enters a sleep-like state, where their body temperature drops, their heart rate slows, and their breathing slows or can even stop for short periods. These changes can be extreme. For example, the normal heart rate of a hummingbird is around 500 beats per minute, but during torpor, this drops to around 50. Hummingbirds actually use torpor most often at night, so they don't starve to death while asleep. They start to exit torpor shortly after sunrise, but it takes around an hour for them to begin their normal daytime activities. Torpor also comes with severe risks, as the hummingbird needs to be in good condition to even use it, and while affected will be unable to react to predators or other life-threatening situations. Hummingbirds have many other adaptations, although I have less to say about these than the ones I've already covered in more detail. For example, they have a leaky gut to allow sugar to enter their bloodstream much more quickly. Most birds cannot detect sugar, but hummingbirds have managed to regain this ability with sweet receptors on their tongues. This helps them to find the best flowers to feed on, but is an ability lost in most other lineages of birds. Only the songbirds share this trait. Hummingbirds have the largest heart for their body size of any animal, clearly an adaptation to improve the circulation of blood and therefore oxygen around their body, which is crucial for getting energy to their muscles for their rapid flight. Hummingbirds that live at higher altitudes have a further adaptation to assist with this, as their hemoglobin has been proven to bind more oxygen than the hemoglobin in other animals. Hummingbirds may all be in the same family, but this is further divided into 6 subfamilies. The first clade has 2 of these. Florasuginae only has 2 genera with 4 species between them, with the topazes and the Jacobins. Phythornithinae is a larger subfamily with around 36 different species. These are the hermits, and most species are much less colourful than the other hummingbirds. Perhaps because of this, most hermits also do not show the strong sexual dimorphism seen in other species. The subfamily Polypminae has about 29 species, including the ones we will be focusing on, so we will return to this group soon. They are sometimes colloquially known as mangoes, since several species in its largest genus use this as their common name, but there are a variety of other common names in the subfamily as well. Next is Lesbianae, with around 120 species. This is typically further subdivided into 2 tribes, one containing the brilliants and the other with the coquettes. Then is Patagoninae, with the 2 species of giant hummingbird. As this name suggests, these are the largest and second largest of all known hummingbirds. Finally, we come to Trochilinae, the final subfamily of hummingbirds. It contains the most species by far, with a total of 170. These are subdivided into 3 tribes, with the mountain gems, bees, and emeralds all constituting different lineages within the subfamily. It includes not only the smallest known hummingbird, but also the smallest bird in the world, with the bumblebee hummingbird. Returning to Polypminae, we can have a closer look at this subfamily. Many of the species in it are known for having a serrated bill, which helps them to catch spiders and insects to supplement their nectar-based diet. The most extreme example of this is in the tooth-billed hummingbird, but these serrations are so small that they are still difficult to see. The genera in it are grouped into 3 broad clades. The first has 5 genera. Polytmus, or the golden-throats, is the first genus. They are followed by the fiery-tailed aulebill in its monotypic genus, Avicitula. Chrysolampus is also monotypic with only the ruby topaz hummingbird in it. The final 2 genera in this clade are a little complicated. These are the mangos in Anthracothorax and the caribs in Eulampus. The issue with these 2 is that genetic studies show that hummingbirds in the genus Eulampus are actually nested within the genus Anthracothorax. This means that some in Anthracothorax are more closely related to Eulampus than they are to other species within their own genus. This means that Anthracothorax is polyphyletic, and so further work is needed with these genera to separate the species out and assign them into monophyletic genera. The next clade has 3 genera in it. The first 2 of these are monotypic, with the horned sungem in Haliactin and the tooth-billed hummingbird in Androdon. The last genus is still very small, with only 2 species, known as fairies. This brings us to the final clade. This starts with the lancebill Sindorifera. This only has 2 species, and as the name implies, they have very long bills. Next is the daggerbills in Schistus. This also has 2 species, and while their bill is shorter than that seen in the lancebills, it is still very straight and pointed, hence the name of daggerbill. Finally, we come to the Violeteers and Colibri. This is actually the group I'm going to spend the rest of the video on, but the breakdown of each species will likely be brief compared to my other videos, as many of their most important adaptations are shared by other hummingbirds, and so have already been discussed. Their common name is a combination of the words violet and air, although it is spelled as one word. This name comes from the violet feathers seen on their ears. When excited, these violet patches are often puffed out, making them look even more like an external ear. Violeteers are easily attracted to artificial nectar feeders, but are also territorial, and so often spend more time chasing other hummingbirds away than they do actually feeding. So, for this rapid-fire tour through the Violeteers, we will start with the white-vented Violeteer, Colibri cerirostris. If you are curious about the common name, the vent on a bird is the part of their body at the base of the tail where the cloaca is located. In white-vented Violeteers, not only is their vent white, but also the base of the tail, giving them a very notable colour difference to the other hummingbirds in this genus. However, the rest of their coloration is also highly distinctive, with males having a pinkish band around their neck. White-vented Violeteers are found in parts of eastern and central South America. This is mostly in Brazil, but its range also extends into parts of Bolivia, Paraguay and Argentina. Their preferred habitat is semi-open environments, such as grasslands, savannas, scrubland, gardens, and parks. In terms of elevation, it is most common between 1,000 to 1,500 metres, or 3,300 to 4,900 feet. However, it can be found all the way from sea level to 3,600 metres, or 11,800 feet in some areas. It is believed that their breeding season is between September and March. The female builds her nest and raises her young alone. She lays 2 eggs, which hatch after 15 to 16 days. The chicks are able to fly at about 22 to 25 days after hatching. The IUCN has rated the white-vented violetier as least concern, despite not having estimates for its population size or trend. This is due to its large range, and it appears common throughout that range, including in several protected areas. After the white-vented violetier, the genus splits into 2 clades. Down the first one, we start with the Mexican violetier, Colibri thalassiensis. As this name suggests, the Mexican violetier is primarily found in Mexico, although its range does extend south into Central America, as far as Nicaragua. Mexican violetiers prefer higher altitudes, normally being found between 1,200 to 2,300 metres, or 3,900 to 7,500 feet above sea level. It can be found as low as 500 metres, or 1,600 feet above sea level, if it is searching for food sources. They feed on various flowers, but do have a preference for species in the genus Inga, a group of small tropical shrubs. Females nest alone and create nests made from plant materials, spider webs, and feathers. She lays 2 eggs, which hatch after 14 to 18 days. The newborns are mostly fed insects, probably for the protein. Breeding takes place in the wet season and into the early dry season, although the exact timing of this will vary depending on their latitude. The species most closely related to the Mexican violetier is the lesser violetier, Colibri cyanotus. The lesser and Mexican violetiers actually used to be considered a single species, collectively known as the green violetier. It was not until 2016 when the American Ornithologists Union formally recognized them as a separate species. They were only separated into 2 species with genetic testing, and so the 2 look and act very similar to each other. Even with the split, the lesser violetier still has 4 recognized subspecies. They are found in a narrow band from Costa Rica and into northern and western South America. If you are familiar with the geography of this part of Central and South America, then you might have guessed the reason for this very narrow distribution range. This reason is that they breed at high altitudes, so are most common along the Andes and other mountain ranges. They prefer cloud forests, but can sometimes be found at lower altitudes, in subtropical or temperate forests, as well as gardens, clearings, and scrubland. Due to them being considered the same species as the Mexican violetier until relatively recently, most of the information we have on them is the same, but it is unknown whether this is because they have a very similar life history and habits, or if it was behaviour attributed to the green violetier, but could now differ given our updated understanding that this is 2 different species. The brown violetier, Colibri delphine, looks very different to the other species in this genus. As its name suggests, it is primarily brown in sharp contrast to the green seen in the other species. It still retains the violet cheek feathers that this genus is known for, but also has a bright green and blue gorget, which stands out sharply from the rest of its less colourful feathers. Gorget is a term that can be used for any bird, but is most commonly used for hummingbirds, and simply refers to their throat. Its range overlaps a lot with the lesser violetiers, but the brown violetier is not found at such high altitudes. However, outside of its breeding season, they will extend their range further into the lowlands. Due to preferring higher altitudes, its range is very patchy. However, it can be found as far north as Guatemala and Belize, south through Central America, and then in parts of northern and western South America. It also has a small, very isolated population on the eastern coast of Brazil, as well as on the islands of Trinidad and Tobago. They prefer the high canopy and rainforests, but will feed lower at the edges of the forest or in coffee plantations. The brown violetier is large for a hummingbird, getting up to 11.5 centimeters long or 4.5 inches. I haven't mentioned it for previous species, but this size is common in the genus, with both the Mexican and lesser violetiers even being a quarter of an inch larger. This size is clearly still on the smaller end when compared to other species of bird, but for a hummingbird it is noticeably large. The last species in this genus, and the one most closely related to the brown violetier, is the sparkling violetier, Colibri coruscans. Surprisingly, given that its closest relative is mostly brown, the sparkling violet tear has perhaps the most striking appearance in its genus. The male's body is a metallic bluish-green with a white belly, and the characteristic bluish-violet feathers on its cheeks. They are also some of the largest violet tears, getting up to 13 or 14 centimeters long, or 5 to 5.5 inches. They do exhibit some sexual dimorphism, although unlike in many birds, the females share the male's bright coloration. The main differences are that the females are slightly smaller and have a white dot behind their eye. There are 2 recognized subspecies of sparkling violet tears. Others have sometimes been suggested, but none of these have been widely accepted. The main subspecies is found widely throughout the mountains and parts of Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Chile, and Argentina. The other subspecies is only found on the tepuis in Venezuela, Guyana, and Brazil. Tepuis, if you are wondering, are tabletop mountains only found in South America. Sparkling violet tears are found in a variety of landscapes, from open grasslands to forest edges, but they will avoid the dense forest. Their other restriction is elevation. This is a montane species, only being found above 1,000 meters or 3,300 feet above sea level. They have been found as high as 4,500 meters or 14,800 feet. I discussed torpor earlier, but this has been a little better studied in the sparkling violet tear. Their torpor is extreme, as they have recorded nighttime body temperatures of 8 degrees Celsius or 46 Fahrenheit, compared to a daytime temperature of 36 or 96 respectively. This is a massive difference in temperature, but they are surprisingly resilient and can warm up rapidly when exiting torpor. It is suggested that this extreme version of torpor is more important for hummingbirds that live in the mountains, like the sparkling violet tear, due to the more extreme climate. Sparkling violet tears create their nests out of plant materials, but will decorate it with lichen on the outside. They usually place this on a twig, but will sometimes put it in a cleft between rocks. Unusually for violet tears, there have been some reports of males helping the females take care of the young, although this has not been confirmed. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hummingbirds are beautiful birds with many highly unique adaptations. While I only quickly went through the violet tears today, I do hope to return to this order and cover more hummingbirds in the future. Thank you for listening, and feel free to suggest another group of animals you want to see me cover in the comments.